Event Horizon is often considered to be Paul W.S. Anderson's best film. In fact, it's usually touted as his only good film. Today we'll uncover how true those statements are as we discuss Sam Neill and Laurence Fishburne's voyage to Neptune to investigate the reappearance of the mysterious Event Horizon. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together to talk about a sci-fi movie. It's quite that simple, and this is the final week of 90s Alien season. This is the fourth and final movie, and this was the voted for movie. This was a vote on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV in the $5 and up tier. There are 4 choices, and bizarrely, this is probably the one that's the least alien of them, in the sense that there's not really like an alien running around. But I mean, there's alien things. There's definitely alien stuff happening, but there's not an alien per se.
Yeah, is there?
There's definitely things that are meant to feel like other alien-esque films.
Okay.
Namely Alien and Aliens. You can tell Paul W.S. Anderson, that is, likes to rip off Alien. And then he got to do it in a movie that actually was allowed to be Alien, an AVP, which we already did. In fact, honestly, the patrons, a little bit cruel making us do another Paul W.S. Anderson movie this soon after AVP. Bit of a kick in the balls, I'm not going to lie. But we're here, we're going to talk about it. So, here we are.
This is what they wanted.
We'll start spoiler free as we always do. I will give you the premise in a second. But I forgot what else I was going to say. I said it in a second because there was something else I wanted to say first, and I've forgotten what the other thing was. So I guess I'll just go straight into the premise like a right tit. Here we go. The premise of Event Horizon is that a ship, and I think we're in the 2070s, something like that, by the time they go out there?
47.
Was it 2047 they go out in the ship?
Yeah, it's like 50 years after the movie was made or something.
Okay. Yeah, because it said 2015 at the start was when we established the first colony on the moon, so we're a bit behind schedule on that one.
Got that wrong.
Yeah, so yeah, they were maybe a bit ambitious with that one, but we find out in 2040 that the Event Horizon, after they've already established stuff on both the moon and Mars, the Event Horizon was a deep space ship that was sent out past Neptune to try and basically explore the edge of the solar system. We actually find out later in the movie that there's a bit more to it than that, but that's what we're told at the start, and it went missing. It's known as the greatest disaster in space because the ship went missing, right? Up until then, there hadn't been any other sort of mass, like mysterious casualties of ships going away and things like that. And the Event Horizon is the ship that went out there. The movie focuses on another ship, captained by Laurence Fishburne. Sam Neill is the person who designed some of the stuff on this ship. I think he designed the Event Horizon entirely, but certainly the engine he built. And he's got along with them to see what happened to it, because it's shown back up, it's sending out a signal, it's back near Neptune, and they're going out there to see what happened. So they explore the ship, look into what happened, and that's the premise of the movie. And some crazy horror sci-fi stuff goes down, and I'll just leave it at that for spoiler free, then we'll get into stuff later. What I was going to say, I remembered halfway through that, I remembered the other thing I was going to say. The other preface that I wanted to make is that Paul W.S. Anderson is generally regarded by everyone as a shite director. He is shite. That's just what he is.
Some people, hot wife though. Sure. Some people will have a cheesy affection for the first Mortal Kombat. In fact, myself included, I have a bit of nostalgia for it. I can watch that movie and get something out of it. But most people agree he's shite. However, there is a large portion of people who do say he made one actual good movie. And they will say that movie is Event Horizon. And I heard this for years before I watched it for the first time, which was not now. This was a rewatch, 2 rewatches might I add, because we had to delay the recording. I'm not happy about that either. It's probably your fault. I can't remember what happened, but it's usually your fault.
That is a blatant lie. I think 1 in 10 delays are my fault, and the other 9 are yours.
Hey, I've
got a full-time job.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying what you said there was blatantly incorrect. That's all I'm saying.
I said probably. That's not a definitive answer.
It's close enough. So what I'm trying to say here is that all you people who say Event Horizons has one actually good movie, you're full of shit. It's terrible, and I'm going to explain to you why you're wrong for the rest of this review.
Because AVP is definitely better than this.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'd agree with that actually. AVP's not good. Let me make that clear. That's not good. That's not a good movie. I gave it like a 4. This is worse than that.
Don't spoil anything.
Hey, there's a lot of numbers below 4. Look, I'm being a little hyperbolic, but I do not think it's good. It's full of things I hate. More so from the horror genre than the sci-fi genre, admittedly, the stuff that I don't like about it. But we'll get into all that. But I think there's a lot of objective complaints. I think there's a lot of really dated elements about the movie from the time it was made, and there's so much more to go into. But correct me if I'm wrong, but you hadn't seen this until we did it for the show.
Oh no, I went and saw this in theaters.
I just thank you. That is like, I couldn't have been more wrong. You saw it in theaters on release. That is like the complete opposite of not seeing it.
I went in completely blind too. I think it was like I just moved to the States, with my family, and my mom and I were like at the movies and just seeing what was there, and I had no idea what it was, but I knew Sam Neill was in it, and he was the guy in Jurassic Park. So I'm like, let's go see Event Horizon. The poster doesn't say that it's a horror movie as far as I remember. It just looked like a science fiction film. So we went in there, and I remember being very scared because I was like young, and it was probably the first time I experienced a movie that had a ton of jump scares in a movie theater. So I remember I was just probably not ready for the movie when I saw it. And I don't think my mom liked it either. But yeah, this is my first time watching it since then, though.
Yeah. Well, I saw it and really did not like it, so I obviously didn't watch it again until I had to for this. And then we delayed the recording, and it was 2 weeks of a delay because we ended up putting it to the end of the season rather than what it was going to be. And as a result,
we had to get Alien 3 out on a certain day.
Yeah. So as a result, it was too long to just like do from there. I had to just watch it again, right? Or both of us did. But so I've just seen it 3 times, and I can undeniably say I hate it. I hate so many things about it, and we're going to get into it.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up very well. I don't know. I don't have the hatred for it that you do. There are parts of it that I'm like, that's not good, or that's a plot hole, or I don't really care about this, or why are they so mean? I don't understand. But then I don't think that all of it is really bad. There's a couple of good parts, I think, and in like the sci-fi stuff, I don't mind. Kind of reminds me of a lot of other movies. I knew you were gonna say Aliens like right away, but like there's a lot of other movies. That's not even the first. It's trying to be.
That is not the first one I'd say though. The first one I would say is The Shining, honestly. But,
yeah, Shining.
But we'll get into all the things that it's kind of ripping off, and not there's anything wrong necessarily with ripping off. If you're going to make a hodgepodge of different things that the creators care about, that's fine. But in terms of my hatred though, because you said you don't have the same hatred for it, like I do think it's this concoction of multiple things. One, I really don't like Paul W.S. Anderson, and I don't like how his characters, not that he wrote the script for this, but it still feels like one of his scripts, even though he didn't. But I don't like his characters and how he directs stories. And then on top of that, it's also full of like really generic supernatural horror tropes that I really don't like most of the time. There are exceptions where they work, and like the right director, maybe Stanley Kubrick, for example, can pull them off and do something with them that feels genuinely creepy. But this actually shows a lot more with like, just all these random things, and we're just expected to care because this. I think Sam Neill's character, we can't really talk about much of it because spoilers, but I will say his character arc is a complete mess and doesn't work. like where his character goes later in the film, I don't think is arrived at all through the story. So that's always been a bit of a problem for me, is I just feel this complete swerve. Well, not even a swerve. I can kind of see that they wanted to build to it, but it kind of feels like they skipped half the story to get there. There's a point where I just felt like, oh wait, we're there? Okay, I guess we'll skip to that part of his character story. But so that's a problem. So I think you mix those things together. You mix my dislike of a lot of what this is doing in terms of its tropes, and then my Paul W.S. Anderson and his characters. You mush them together, and you have something that on paper, this is the thing, on paper, the premise, I love stories about the mysterious, like, this ship is derelict now, something killed the crew, we have to go on board and investigate why. I love shit like that.
Of course. Who wouldn't?
It's great. You know, it reminds me of,
like
obviously, Dead Space. Obviously this came later, but there's one of the early episodes of Firefly is actually this kind of premise where they find a ship that's been attacked by reavers. And they don't know that at first, but when they're going through and they're like seeing what happened to them, it's like, oh shit, we know what happened here. This was reavers, and it's, you know, it's the whole thing. Like I dig those types of stories. That this is something that on paper, the broad premise does appeal to me, and I was hopeful going in to watch it the first time I did, even though I knew I didn't like Paul W.S. Anderson. But everything that he does, every creative choice he makes, I pretty much dislike. And all the things that him and his writer like are doing to try and make his characters come off as cool, I basically want to shove them all out the airlock constantly. Yeah,
anytime there's a cool guy dialogue, and it's always the same person in this film, it's awful. It's usually the worst part of the film.
Yeah, I don't like his characters. Like because it's funny because when we talked about AVP, I was obviously comparing it to Aliens a lot, how he's trying to do the ensemble cast, but I think he's actually trying to do it in this as well. Like, I think he's clearly trying to do a colonial marine style, like, group and camaraderie. You know, it's not the exact one-to-one, but I think that is definitely some of the inspiration here. It's probably why he got the job for AVPs, because he made this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I was going to joke early on about how, like, I can't wait for you to bring up how Paul W.S. Anderson is just trying to do Aliens with colonial marines on board. But you jumped to it, so I couldn't do the joke.
I mean, but he is though. Like, I'm saying it because it's true.
Look, the movie is. I'm gonna tell you about it. They took the scripts for Aliens, maybe even the first Alien, The Shining, From Beyond, and Hellraiser, and threw them into a blender, and this is the movie that came out.
And they went by the set of Jurassic Park and kidnapped Sam Neill.
Yes. And Laurence Fishburne.
Yeah, but The Matrix hadn't come out yet, so he wasn't like the star that, you know, he was about to become. Well, it wasn't known.
He could have been though, but he turned down the role of Jules.
Ah, yeah.
For Pulp Fiction.
Obviously, he was in things before that. I'm not saying he wasn't in anything before then. You know, go back to Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. He's in that, baby.
King of New York. It's a great movie.
He's in King of New York, but yeah, it's a pretty good movie. So he's obviously in things before then, but you know, he became a star because of The Matrix. Like, Morpheus is his role. Well, that's what catapulted him to, like, you know, everyone knows who he is because of that movie.
Yeah. Unless you're Pee-wee fans, then he's Cowboy Curtis.
Because I mean, hell, it's the first thing I saw him in. You know, and then I, you know, went and saw his other stuff, you know, later. But yeah, so he's definitely the co-star of this film. No, he's billed as such. Sam Neill is the star, and there's a couple of faces I kind of recognize. I think it's the pilot, the English guy, son Pertwee. It was bugging me what I knew him from. Now, for something close to this, he's in Dog Soldiers, which is a British horror movie. For something a bit more recent, he was actually Alfred on the Gotham TV show, but he's obviously like, you know, 15, 20 years older, so he's got a bit of a different vibe in that. But that's him. And then the blonde lady, Julie Richardson, I've definitely seen in some things.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. She's Vanessa Redgrave's kid.
Oh really?
Mm-hmm. She looks like her too, I think. Yeah, so she's but I think she still acts too. She's still in stuff.
Oh, for sure. She's
same with the other woman, the one you know, well, I won't say, but like the short-haired one.
Well, just on Julia Richardson, she's going to be in the Sandman Netflix show, which is currently being made. So yeah, she's still very actively working. But she was in The Patriot with Mel Gibson.
Love that movie. Also, with Jason Isaacs, who's in this film.
And Jason Isaacs, yeah, is the other person obviously I knew, who was on a Trek show. So that's his claim to fame. Everyone's like, what about Harry Potter? He was in Harry Potter. Like,
yeah, I guess. I mean, he's good in it, but like he's great in The Patriot.
Patriot's a weird movie. I always kind of felt, because obviously Gibson did Braveheart first, and I always felt that The Patriot was like somewhat like someone in Hollywood went, wait, we want the American version of The Patriot, so or Braveheart, so go make The Patriot. That's what it always felt like to me when that came out.
Yeah, that's why it's so great. Like the American flag is literally used as a murder weapon. It's so America. I love it.
And the great funny thing about all this is that he is neither Scottish or American.
No.
That's what's funny about it.
He's Australian, right?
He is Australian, yeah. If you go watch The Third Man Max, which we'll do at some point for the show, he is Australian. Although I feel like he's probably got an American citizenship and all that by now.
Well, I think he might be like, he's Australian, but I think maybe he was born in the U.S. or he was born there and came over to the U.S. because he has an American accent. When he's acting, he has an American accent, like without acting. So like he needs, so he must have. I don't know.
That may be an
there is something kind of wishy-washy about it.
That may be an intentional thing though, because Christian Bale has an English accent when he's doing interviews and stuff, and he's Welsh.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Well, he has to, otherwise no one will understand him.
So maybe it's an intentional thing just to make sure everyone can understand him, or maybe just that he was doing an American accent for so long that he.
Yeah, I think. Oh, he was born in New York.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah. So I think he went to Australia pretty young.
Okay, so he moved to Australia then came back.
Yeah. Something.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
I know I've looked it up before. We'll go into it when we do the Mad Max movie.
Yes. We'll actually look up what his lineage is. Long before the sugar tits incident. We'll talk about his lineage.
I told you he was American. Sexist, bigoted. It checks all the boxes.
Yeah. So I mean, I know I shouldn't laugh because obviously it's horrible what he said, but there's something about.
I mean, it was so long ago too.
But there's something about the phrase "sugar tits" which just I find really funny. I don't know.
Well, sure. I don't know if it was invented from him, but
it may not have been. Yeah, maybe it come from somewhere else. But there's something about that phrase is just really funny to me. Much funnier than anything the characters say in this movie.
I would agree with that.
Not just a comedy, but there is definitely some attempts at one-liners and wisecracks and things like that.
This movie also kind of wants to be Deep Blue Sea, although I think maybe that was after this movie. But
yeah, Deep Blue Sea was after.
Yeah. It wants to be it.
Actually, Joe, I would like to talk about. We can talk about in spoiler free, is the opening titles.
Yeah, aren't they awful? They look so cheap.
They're so cheap. It's doing this thing where they're sort of like flying towards the screen or they're zooming towards the screen. But what really bugged me, and there's like a sort of like kind of like vortex behind them or something. But what really got me was like the techno music. Then the soundtrack that is playing over it. It's part of the score, I think, but they were going for this like mid-90s techno thing, which given he also did Mortal Kombat and that had that's got quite a famous track that isn't bad for what it is.
It's a great song.
Yeah. I think the Mortal Kombat song, I don't necessarily like the middle of it that much, but that opening little loop is great because it's such a great build till he shouts Mortal Kombat, and then from there it's just generic dance stuff. But that opening bit sounds really good.
Yeah, it's great for if you need to drive fast, but under the speed limit.
Yeah, we encouraging on my show to stop it. Yes. But I had to mention the opening titles because it was one of the first things that it's obviously it's the first thing you see, it's the first thing you hear.
Sure.
It's the first impression
it's just trying to get you pumped up for this, violent horror film.
Do you know the thing is though, is that this movie by its nature should be slow paced, at least till up to a point. When they're first making the journey and they're going there, and it is slower paced than later in the film. But one of the problems of the movie is that it's only 90 something minutes, and it does feel like it's probably at least 20 minutes too short because it's one of the things that would help the atmosphere and some of the character building would probably be a slower pace, just to get to know them and really care about them a bit.
I did see that the like I think the first thing on the trivia is like the movie was originally like 130 minutes or something, and it had a lot more like grotesque imagery, and a lot more had happened in it, which probably feels like some things just kind of happen quickly to some characters, or some decisions get made that feel kind of stupid in the moment. So but like test audiences and maybe some producers or something were like, it's just too much, it's too much violence for us or whatever, and so they had to cut it out. But I would be curious to see what it is,
I mean,
if it is really like just too grotesque for a test audience, I'd like to see what that means.
I mean, I'm a fan of gore and stuff in movies, but like I think it's interesting to me there that you're saying that extra, so 90 to 100, the extra like 35 minutes, that give or take, is mostly because of violence and stuff. When to me, what I think it needs is the other stuff. I think it needs more character building. I think it needs a bit more atmosphere and like so. Essentially,
well, I'm sure it's like, hey, we need you to make this shorter, and also we don't want all this.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying every single minute of it's that, but I think it's interesting though that I don't think what it needs is more violence and gore. Like I didn't feel shortchanged by that in the movie, and I'm not saying that there can't be more. Like by all means, but
well, there is like one very short moment where you get to see like some pretty disturbing imagery. And that moment I do like it because it is showing quite a bit, and you're like, oh, that's like, yeah, that is pretty grotesque. So like, if it's more of that kind of stuff, it would have been at least more, interesting.
I don't think it would have fixed the movie though, and as much as I'm making this recommendation and saying that it needs to be slower paced, it needs to do all these other things, I don't think a longer cut from this creative team would be any better. Like I feel like it'd be a longer movie that's just as bad.
I mean, maybe I just would be curious.
I don't want to watch it again, so no, I'm good. I don't care.
I know. We all know you hate him.
I do. It's my sworn enemy. He butchered Resident Evil, and then, Alien vs Predator, and then I had to sit through this. So, I have nothing but veil in my heart for WS.
You never know. He might watch this review.
I hope he does.
We support creative people on this channel and their visions.
He's not creative.
Give us the movies that you want to make.
He doesn't have a vision. He doesn't. This is Paul W.S. Anderson is like the blind version of creative vision. Right?
Sure. It is interesting how this movie actually does feel like on paper that it would be a very original concept, but like it also just feels like an amalgam of so many different movies.
Oh yeah, there's another movie you didn't mention actually, which, well, it's not ripping off this because it didn't come out yet, but there's definitely some things in it that are a little Blair Witch, and I'll point those out as well when we're talking about the actual, the spoilers, but there's definitely something, particularly Blair Witch 2. There's a scene in this that's very Blair Witch 2. So
I've seen that movie. It's garbage.
Sure.
The Book of Shadows or something?
Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, yes. That's the film.
Oh, that's a bad movie.
Yeah, that was one that was heavily studio interfered. Apparently, there was potentially something interesting to begin with, and then it got chopped and changed, and the studio just wanted a horror movie, and the director was trying to make some like real satirical like horror statement or something.
Yeah, I remember the acting in particular was just so horrendous in that film, and maybe it was because he was going to go for a satire originally.
I don't remember. I mean, we did it for Screams. We did them together for Screams. Like just before the 2016 one came out. Yeah. So it's been a while. So I don't really remember too much. But the one scene that I always, even from the first viewing of that movie, that I always remembered is the scene that I'm reminded of in this. So, so we could talk about that a little bit. Yeah. As far as the other stuff goes, because I really don't want to spoil anything, I will say that some of the set design, I think is a little try hard, particularly the engine room in the Event Horizon, which has got like this, you know, the engine's this like big, you know, there's like 3 rings that are spinning and all that.
It's a Stargate, yeah.
For some reason, all of the rings that are spinning all have these spikes on them, and I'm like, what purpose do these spikes have other than the set designer was told to make it look edgy? Literally, in this case, it's edgy. But, you know, like, what purpose does this have? Like, why is this... It's like, why does this room look like a torture chamber?
Evil.
Yeah, it looks evil, but it wasn't designed to look evil, or it shouldn't have been designed to look evil. Either things would be a certain way because it's a byproduct of what it's doing, and that like creates a certain look, or it would be very clinical because why would you, you know, give it design thoughts? You know, in terms of aesthetic, that's not important.
Let me ask you a very serious question.
Okay.
Is this movie better if it had the word Hellraiser in front of it?
No, because I actually disagree that it's that Hellraiser. I think it's more
Really?
shining.
There's an actual line in this movie that is just straight from Hellraiser.
Sure, but I think it's way more shining than Hellraiser. So I like, people call it Hellraiser in space. I think it's a bit of just a cop
Well, they
out.
probably call it that because, like, I mean, other than what I just said, it like, aren't the Hellraiser sequels sort of known for just taking these scripts and putting Hellraiser in front of it? And somehow getting Pinhead in the film?
Yeah, a lot of the later sequels are like that. That's true.
Yeah.
But Hellraiser had a movie in space. They already did that. So
Yeah. I'm sure this is better.
I don't know if I agree with that. That movie was terrible, but there was some silliness to enjoy at times.
I don't know. I think if you put the word Hellraiser in front of the title, I think it works. And maybe swap out a couple characters for it to be appropriate. I think it would have been kind of a neat sequel to, you know, a bunch of trash sequels. And a couple good ones.
Okay, that implies that you actually think this is decent then. So I suppose I never asked the question. Tara, what do you think of Event Horizon?
I'm come see, come sa.
Aye, so decent was a bit of a stretch there.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned, like, there are things that I like about it, but there are a lot of things that I dislike about it.
Well, we'll see what those things are that you like about it.
Well, I sort of already mentioned one.
Okay. I'll be a bit hostile for the lols, but I find this movie very unlikable pretty much right away. Like, there's no character interactions that I enjoy, and that's usually one of the things in this type of movie that like wins you over to begin with, so you can feel bad when they all start having horrific things happening to them and dying and so on, is that you care about the connections, you're rooting for someone to survive. And I found myself not rooting for anyone in this. I didn't care about anyone.
Pilot.
Okay.
I like Jason Isaac.
You want to say Clark, didn't you? You want to say Jason Clark. I can see it in your eyes.
I was like, is that a real name, Jason Isaacs? I don't know. I just said it earlier.
Jason Voorhees. That would have made this movie better. Jason just murdering them instead. That would have made it better. I mean, they did that. It was called Jason X. Way better movie than this.
That's where the Event Horizon went to Crystal Lake. Came back.
Jason X is way better than this movie. Oh god. I mean, it's not a good movie.
Yeah, I like Jason X.
But it's way more entertaining. Come on, Jason X is a blast.
Oh, it's got some great kills. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we're ready to go to spoilers, so we can actually start talking about everything.
Yeah, I think so.
All that stuff. Actually, one final spoiler-free thing, because I can mention this, is some of, like, whenever there's no gravity, the horrendous CG objects floating around, holy shit, they look terrible.
They look bad, but they're not as bad as some of the other ones from this year, even. I mean, like, the year this movie came out.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Examples? What were you thinking of?
Like, Lost in Space is pretty notoriously bad.
That was a year later, I think you'll find.
Well, I mean...
It doesn't necessarily...
It's worse.
devalue your point, but I'm just... I believe that was 98. Yeah, I can't think of other 97 movies with bad CG. I mean, obviously, like, you know, I'm thinking... look, I think Men in Black had decent CG for its time. You know, for example, that was this year. But some of the CG like objects, you know, it's just simple stuff like cups and things that are floating around. And there's no gravity.
They
and
kind of have that Alien 3 problem where they just look a little bit like they're I mean they're not lit properly so that it fits in the scene, you know. They look superimposed.
And it happens enough throughout the film that you're reminded of it every so often, you know. There's all these little examples. Another example of bad CG is and this is right at the start, so I don't know if this is a spoiler because you get this in a dream sequence right at the start, is you see someone without eyes, but the eye sockets are CG, and that looks really bad. So, and it's kind of punching, you know, below the waist a little bit to just like bring up bad effects from a long time ago, but it, like other movies would dangle things on strings. Like you didn't have to do it with CG in 1997. You know, there were other options to handle some of this stuff.
Well, you know, they had to walk so that other movies could run.
Yeah, it's.
We'll talk about it more when we do Tron, whatever it is.
Tron Legacy.
Tron Legacies.
The only thing it is, don't bothers me about it is obviously there's a lot of really bad CG in movies, like all the way up until just now. These really cheap movies, and I might even just talk about Asylum, but other things that have really bad effects in them. But I think the difference between a lot of those and stuff from this like time period is that I get the feeling that in 1997 when they were putting these in, they were thinking, oh, this is great, we're doing this with CG, this is like the advanced technology, aren't we hot shots? And I think like the delusion into thinking that this is better because it's CG, because that's the hot new thing to use at the time, instead of doing it a traditional way, pisses me off. Because if you just made the decision, if you just said, you know what, no, we can achieve a better end result with a different method.
They made a dinosaur look great and realistic in like what 4 years before this.
Yeah, but this isn't Jurassic Park.
They can't do a cup.
And to be fair, Jurassic Park though, like it's like if you watch Jurassic Park now, and we have because we did it a couple of years ago, the CG does, like, you can tell when it's CG and not the practical. You can tell the switch. It's very obviously when it's CG. It's a little blurry by today's standards. I mean, it's good for the time. For 1993, it was, you know, like, whereas this
Incredible.
This is not great for the time though. This would, I guess, might have been not as terrible at the time because people weren't used to seeing CG as often, but this was not even good at the time, and now it's just laughable. And like, what were you thinking? This and 2 years prior, the other example I always think of is the Zord fight from the end of the Power Rangers movie in 1995. The CG in that is. Oh.
I mean, I watched some Neill Breen masterpieces in the last couple of weeks, so like CGI has not improved that much. If you're just judging by the Breen screen effects.
The Breen Street. Tara, I don't think someone making a movie on a $25 budget counts as an example of what CG can do today.
Why'd you have to commit suicide? Why'd you have to do it? Why'd you have to commit suicide?
At least tell
talk about that movie.
At least tell me the character you're saying that to is already dead. Please tell me he's dead.
Allegedly.
I love the idea of someone yelling, "Why did you allegedly commit suicide? Why did you allegedly commit suicide?" All right.
That's good.
One day
I was really proud of the term Breen screen. I don't know if anyone else has used it, but I wanted to bring that up.
We should be proud of it. I'm actually quite impressed. It's very good. I'm being sincere. That's good.
He gets right up to that eagle and gives it a big hug.
All right. We're alienating everyone who has no idea who Neill Breen is. He is a writer, director, actor who makes his own movies. He is terrible at all of his jobs, and he's got an ego the size of
Tommy Wiseau's?
I don't know, maybe bigger than that.
William Shatner?
It might be bigger. The fact that it said William Shatner was actually a star in a hit TV show, though, where Neill Breen's just got an ego for no reason, which is what's amazing about it. Google YouTube Neill Breen, have a look at some of his clips. You'll be wowed beyond your belief. and go from there. All right, let's get to spoilers then. Spoilers for Event Horizon from this point on. You have been warned. So the film generally opens up with Sam Neill waking up in a nightmare. He's he doesn't see the eye socket lady yet, or I say the eye socket lady, it's his dead wife, but like that's what I was calling her in my head. The whole movie was the eye socket lady. But he wakes up in a nightmare because he's in like the Event Horizon. But then he wakes up and he's on just some space station, and we hear his name get called out. He's going on a mission, and then we cut straight to the Event Horizon. Sorry. The
Lewis and Clark.
I'm going to do this a lot, as I keep accidentally calling the ship that they're going on to the Event Horizon the Event Horizon. It's not. It's the Lewis and Clark, but not the Lois and Clark, because I may make that mistake as well for obvious Superman fan reasons.
Good luck to you.
Yeah, but we cut to the Lewis and Clark, and we're introduced to Laurence Fishburne's character and the crew. And they're all kind of fast talking. Sam Neill can't get a word in edgewise, and they're not actually even going to have their meeting. And this is the very aliens part, because in Aliens, after they wake up from the cryo sleep, they have the big like meeting, like in the where the drop ship is and all that, and that's where they have the thing. They kind of do that here, except it's more like Alien 1, and it's around the cafeteria table where they have their speech. But that's where they finally let Sam Neill explain why they're out here, and it's this super classified mission, and it's like, well, we found the signal, the Event Horizon, it went missing, but there was more to it than that. It was testing, faster than light technology. And one of the first big warning signs of this movie is these characters, with the scientist who is here because he's an expert in this stuff, immediately go, but you can't. I mean, I'm okay with the pilot saying, but that's not possible, you can't do that. I'm okay with him saying that. But then Blonde Lady jumps in and tries to explain to this physicist why it's not possible. I think he knows. I think he knows why you think it's not possible.
I love that he has to keep dumbing down the explanation. Layman's terms, please.
Well, he says, that's the thing, he says layman's terms and then uses a lot of sciencey words which clearly no one understands.
Yeah, what he says singularity, and all these astronauts are like, whoa.
Yeah, and of course, now obviously,
okay, Mr. Scientist.
Right before 90s Alien season, we did Interstellar, which also had this moment, right?
Yeah.
But something about Sam Neill doing the fold of paper and put the pencil through it to show how a wormhole works and like traveling across space and time, it was just kind of like, why is this so much more lame in this? It's so I think
I do remember when I saw this in the theater being fascinated by this part.
Yeah, do you know what I think it is? I think it's because of the setup, and because I was so annoyed about how the characters were questioning him, and I'm like, you guys travel in space. I feel like this should be less like insane to you what he's talking about, like, right? Especially since you were trying to fight him on it. Like as soon as you started talking about
everybody's super rude to him, and I don't understand why. Like Laurence Fishburne especially is like mean to him. Like, why is he so mean to this guy? Like, okay, I get, he does say like, oh, we were supposed to be on leave, but you know, we were drawn back in for one more mission because you had to go visit your dead wife's ship or whatever. Well, it's not her ship, but like, you know what I mean? You have to go. Yeah, the wife was dead on this mission.
Separately. The wife was dead long before Event Horizon. Yeah. But you're saying that because he sees his dead wife walking about occasionally with the eye sockets missing. Or, well, the eye sockets are there, but the eyes are missing. Yeah. Hence, so I'm saying eye socket lady, you're saying Event Horizon lady. Okay, we'll establish this.
Yes. she is the ship.
No, don't confuse it, because there's something else. I'm only pulling you up in this because they actually say that the ship is like alive later, and I don't want to confuse it by suggesting that that's actually a theory, because it isn't.
It's okay. It's the Overlook Hotel. That's what the Event Horizon.
Kind of. So everything about this scene is just really unpleasant. Like, this is the scene that I'm supposed to, because if you think of Aliens, right, and I know it's a bit cruel comparing it to Aliens, it's a bit cruel, but you think of that scene in Aliens where Ripley's trying to tell them about what she saw, what the xenomorph is, and they're challenging her because it sounds unbelievable, but you think of the banter that these characters have with each other, how they crack jokes at each other, and like you're kind of like starting to like Hicks, Hudson, Vasquez because of the way they're bouncing off of each other. Here, they all just start being mean to him, so they all just come off as mostly being kind of mean and be like, "Oh, you asshole, you brought us out here," like, which confused me as well because I'm like, wait, is this a military vessel? Because you don't seem like military to me.
Also, like, are they in Aliens, like, they're just hitching a ride, right? Like, but these guys, like, this is their ship, isn't it? Like, they all seem to know the ship. They're all engineers.
Yeah, I think it's Laurence Fishburne's ship, and then everyone else like is his regular crew who work with him. You know, they're employees of his, effectively. I think
with dog tags, so they're all like military.
So yeah, maybe it is military, but they never. That's really the dog tags and the line that we were supposed to be on leave is really the only time it feels like a military thing. Other than that, it just feels like a ragtag group of misfits who got this job because reasons. So maybe that's a complaint in the like just the characterization and the movie really setting a foundation for what this team actually is. But you know, yeah. So and we have a lot of similar scenes of like Aliens where they're waking up at the pods. Although it's not cryosleep in this, they explain it in this more as the body can't handle the speed the ship's going at. It would liquefy your bones, so you have to go into a water, a fluid filled tank, and that's what helps you survive.
It's like the Abyss. Reasoning, you have to go into the water so that the pressure doesn't kill you.
I mean that the Abyss thing's more just based on some truth. I mean, maybe this is also kind of based on truth, but I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure this is just nonsense.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know, but
maybe it's true, I don't know,
but it reminded me of the Abyss.
But I mean, yeah, pressure and depressurizing when you're coming back up from the deep is a real thing. Like, that's not just the Abyss making up a movie rule.
Yeah, but doesn't the Abyss have it where you have to inhale water? This whatever this fluid is, oxygenated water or whatever.
Oh, but that's going into like deep stuff that it is obviously just for the movie. That's like that's in the movie there's like, oh hey, we've got maybe an alternate way of dealing with that, and obviously that's all fictional. But like that's, sure. Yeah. But I'm just saying the actual idea is not like it's just.
I know you don't want me to compare this movie to The Abyss, but like,
especially since
I've not seen. Think about it. Okay.
I've not seen The Abyss in like 15 to 20 years because there's not a proper copy of it to watch because it's in shit quality. So I don't want to have to sit here and defend a movie that I've not seen in that long, and I know I love it.
You don't need to defend it. I'm just saying that this one aspect reminded me of this thing they did in The Abyss to help with the pressure.
Okay. All right. Do you know what that reminded me of actually is he stopped doing it now, but for every once in a while after Interstellar came out, whenever Matt wanted to explain like time acting differently, he'd always say, as we learned in Interstellar, as if Interstellar taught the world that, as if that's where it came from. You saying, oh, that's the Abyss rule, that you have to like, think about the pressurization where you're going underwater.
One day we'll talk about The Abyss.
I hope it's this year. Come on, that 4K release is happening. Come on.
Cameron made the announcement. It's all right.
Jim Cameron's next movie is literally water based. Okay, he's doing underwater on Pandora. It's time to release The Abyss in proper quality. It is time.
Maybe the movies are linked. Maybe it's a shared universe.
I mean, I'm not going to complain if that happens. I won't complain. But anyway, so yeah, the characters all come off kind of. So like I was saying though, when they're waking up out the tubes, it's a lot like when they're waking up in Aliens, and they're all like saying things to each other. Someone comes up and tries to offer them coffee. That's kind of the wisecracking guy on the crew. He flirts with one of the ladies that's there, blonde lady that's there. Like, all these little moments that they're trying to build the characters up. And I'm not trying to like get say bad things because it's trying to give them some character. It's good that it's trying to give them some character, because some movies wouldn't. Some movies that are even worse than this wouldn't even do that. But you want them to be likable. Well, some of them need to be likable. You want to be rooting for some of them, but it comes off, I guess, a little bit try hard and thin in places. And there's a lot of little things like, when they're getting close to the event horizon and they can hear like a message that was being sent out, and isn't it convenient that Jason Isaacs can speak some Latin so he can translate a little bit?
I think it's pretty inconvenient that no one knew to translate the Latin before they went on this journey.
Oh, but did they get the message before? I think I think I
I'm
thought
pretty sure they did.
I think I thought they only got it once they were close enough. So it's not like it. But if you're right and they had it on Earth before they left, then yeah, why didn't someone translate it?
That's what I thought. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong, but
Well, I'm not sure though. I'm like
I was surprised. Like, wait, he's the only one who recognized the Latin?
I watched it again today, right? But just a few hours ago. But I'm not gonna lie, I don't like the movie, and it was kind of a refresh. So I might have not always been looking at the screen on the second watch. Okay,
Sure. Yeah.
so I might not have quite picked up in the minutiae of that a little bit, but yeah. So
Well, hopefully you're right and I'm wrong, because otherwise the scene doesn't make very much sense at all.
yes, but if you're right, the movie's even stupider, and I'm okay with that.
Well, you really hate this guy.
So the big thing though, as they're getting towards the ship, is that Sam Neill cares about his ship. He cares about finding out what happened to it. Obviously, when he says it disappeared when they turned on the gravitational engine thingamabob that creates a wormhole, it's like, okay, clearly it went somewhere and now it's came back, and that's what the mystery is. So we're going to go and explore it. The big thing with his character throughout a lot of the early half of the movie would be that he keeps insisting that he keeps insisting that things aren't dangerous, even though it clearly nearly kills one of them. He keeps insisting on various things, and and this is the problem. So even Sam Neill comes off as kind of unlikable, because he does sound really one note and like whiny about everything, because he keeps saying, "Captain, I need to be on that ship. I need to go with you. I'm not staying back here." And instead of making us like Sam Neill, so that when he sort of makes his turn as the film's going on, so it's like a tragedy, it's kind of this thing where I already just found him unlikable, so now that he's just going down this darker path, I'm just kind of like, whatever.
I guess. I mean, I never really found him that unlikable. I thought it was more that Fishburne was unlikable for just being a total dick to him the whole time. I mean, this is really his mission. This is Sam Neill's mission, to go out there. He needs to get to the core. He knows the ship, so it would make sense that he would go.
I mean, Fishburne feels like he's just running a tight ship, and he's not like, it feels like he's doing things by the book. He has a good reason for him staying back in the ship and things like that. I think the problem with Sam Neill's character for me is that, okay, obviously it's going different places than Aliens, right? Because he's going to take this like dark turn and do all these things, so it's different once you get to that point. But imagine if in Aliens we didn't like Ripley, right? Because Ripley's very much our conduit in that film. And okay, yeah, there's a previous film we care about her from, but Ripley's our conduit where no matter what anything else going on, we're kind of on her side, and it works in the context of that movie because as she's been introduced to all these characters, she's learning about them, so we're learning about them with her, and so on and so forth. In this movie, our main character is Sam Neill, effectively, and as he is interacting with these characters, it just becomes more and more disputes as the film goes on. No one really is on his side. He's constantly clashing with them. It comes to blows at one point because he's sort of talking down to them. And I think that's the point where he really becomes unlikable, is when the wisecracking guy, when he sees the first guy the young guy who gets injured by like going into the black hole and coming back out of it. And I say black hole, it's more of a portal, but for lack of a better term, because that's what happens when they first go out of the ship and they're snooping around in the suits. He goes into it, he touches it, and it's like water almost, and then he goes into it, and then he comes back out. The wisecracking guy saw some of this, and he tries to say, I saw him go into it and come back. And Sam Neill's like, well, you didn't. That's not possible. And he's being Dyatlov in Chernobyl. He's being, no, that's not possible. You didn't see it. There's no graphite on the roof. That's what he's being in this scene.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good point. But I mean, his point is that in order for the core to be activated, it has to turn on. But no one's been here in a long time, so like it can't turn on by itself.
But it got back.
His reasoning is sound.
Well, it's not, because it got back. The ship got back, so something turned it on. And if the crew have been dead for a long time, then clearly something made it turn on.
Okay, yeah, well, maybe you're right.
So he's wrong. Sam Neill's wrong. No offense, Sam Neill. You seem like a lovely guy.
Well, maybe I mean, it could be that I don't think that he's unlikable just because he is Sam Neill, and I like him so much from other movies.
Yeah, well, I think that's my problem with it though, is I do think he's so likable in Jurassic Park, and in this, right from the get-go, he's got this unlikable tinge to him, and he just keeps getting more unlikable. And then when he eventually takes his, I've gone crazy and I am now, one with the evil force that has possessed the ship or whatever, there's a line like 2/3 into the movie where everyone else just wants to abandon the place and leave and go home, and Laurence Fishburne, because this place at this point is proven that it's dangerous and it's doing all these spooky things, he's like, I'm going to blow this thing up as we leave, so it can't harm anyone else. Whatever's happened to this ship, it has to be just nuked from orbit, effectively, to borrow a line. And Sam Neill, when he says, Laurence Fishburne says to him, you better collect your things and get on our ship or you're going to be walking home. And Sam Neill just like backs into the darkness and says, I am home. And that is the moment for me where this movie unequivocally falls apart, because you did not set this up enough for me where it landed. I just went, wait, you're at this point now?
I mean, I thought that scene was kind of funny just because they're basically in the umbilicus of the two ships that are connected. And so it's just like a tube that they're in, a big hallway.
Oh no, that's not.
I am whole, and then he like backs away into the darkness, but like we know where he is.
Yeah, that's not
He's
the connection.
hiding.
That's not the connection between the two ships. That is a part of the Event Horizon, because it's the part that because there's like bombs in it to blow it up in case they want to make the front part act like a lifeboat. So because they explain it earlier on in the film, they talk about how the engines.
But it is like a giant hallway that they're in.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's a big long thing, but the idea is that the engine and the dangerous parts are all at one end, and then all of the flying and crew areas are all up at the other end. And it's designed so they can like separate it. And although I'm like, if you're going to build it to be separatable, why not just make it so it can actually separate? Why is your great plan to just plant explosives? Because like the Enterprise, like the saucer coming off the other part, like why not just build it to be detachable?
Oh, you mean that thing they did in the pilot and then like never brought up again?
No, they did it at least once or twice more.
Yeah. It was always like, it was established to be this big thing that the ship can do. It has two parts now. Since there's families on board, you can have it battle stations and like a big, life raft essentially.
Like, not everything that seems like a great idea when you're writing the pilot ends up being something you're going to use that much, okay?
That's true.
Right, they found a couple of reasons to use it, I think, and it was earlier. It was like season 1 and 2. They found a couple of reasons, and it's been nothing. It's been nothing since.
One of the movies.
One of the movies, sure. But
I think that's it.
But yeah. Hey, but anyway, so that's the thing. So they're going to blow the whole place up, and I think Laurence Fishburne wants to like sort of redistribute them to just blow up everything so that all of it's gone. Because the big thing is that when they first go on the Event Horizon and they're poking in around, and the guy gets injured because he gets pulled in, and he comes back and he's in like a sort of burned catatonic state. When this happens, it's like a shockwave hits like through the ship, and it actually does a lot of damage to their ship, the Lewis and Clark. And a couple of the characters spend most of the rest of the movie just outside the ship patching it up so they can fly their ship home eventually. So that's what they're doing. Obviously it doesn't go to plan, as you might expect. And it's when they're walking around the Event Horizon that and this is the stuff that we're just going to roll into one big ball and just talk about the various examples, but
sure,
each of the characters see someone or something related to their past in a ghost-like form that is starting to make them go crazy. And for Sam Neill, it's his ex-wife who committed suicide. For the short-haired woman, it's like she sees her son who's like sick or died around the ship. Laurence Fishburne, he sees like someone who was like a close comrade, and he had to let burn because he was in like a damaged part of the ship, and he had to just let him die. So it's this tragic choice from his past that he has to remember, this burned man. So I mean, not everyone has their own specific thing, but those are like the three bigger ones that I can think of.
Those are the three big examples. Jason Isaacs has like a scar down the center of his body. Do we remember what that was all about, or was that probably linked to a deleted scene?
I'm trying to remember. Maybe there was a line when he was talking to Sam Neill near the start or something where he mentioned something that would be related to that scar. I can't remember.
Me neither, and I watched it again this morning.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so I mean, he has some sort of trauma with that, which comes back in this film. Yeah, and then like the young guy, Baby Bear, has he's the one who gets sucked in the beginning,
Yes.
and then when he reappears, has clearly seen some dark stuff, and is unable to like comprehend what he has seen or to even keep living.
Yeah, I think that's Justin.
Which was reminding me of the Hellraiser stuff too.
I think his name's Justin, the young guy. Just so we got a name to give him.
Yeah, the short haired girl always calls him Baby Bear.
I'm looking at these names and I reckon like none of them are ringing a bell. It's actually really like the blonde lady Stark.
I feel like I would have remembered that.
Stark? Yeah, that doesn't even ring a bell. I mean, I'm not usually good at remembering names from movies and shows. It takes a lot to get me to remember them. But usually when I look at the IMDb list, they ring a bell. Like, oh yeah, I remember them saying that a couple times.
I mean, Stark is Tony Stark, the House Stark from Game of Thrones. Like it's a big, it's a big name in pop culture. You think you would have remembered that one?
Yeah. I mean, could you tell me what Laurence Fishburne's character's name is with it looking?
Fish.
No.
That's what I call him.
It's Miller.
Is there a Cooper?
There is a Cooper. The wisecracking guy, he was Cooper.
Okay.
Yeah. Jason Isaacs was DJ. I did not get DJ vibes from Jason Isaacs. That's pretty funny. Yeah, so I think this is one of the things I don't like in a lot of supernatural horror movies is just the random ghost things happening, because a lot of them, especially when they're accompanied with a lot of quick cuts, and this movie likes to do the music video thing where there's a lot of quick cuts to things happening. There's not a lot of long uninterrupted takes or anything like that, and the editing style feels a bit more frenetic, and maybe that's part of it being cut down, but it also matches Paul W.S. Anderson's other films, so I don't think that's him being forced to do that. I think that's just what the editing style was anyway. There was just more of it in the longer cut, would be my guess. So it does have that feel, not just of his films, but like movies of this time that weren't like good. Oh, for sure, yeah. In fact, it's worth mentioning, when we were watching this for the first time, not ever, but when we were watching it for the first time for the show a couple of weeks ago, when Tara was watching it, she sent me a message maybe like half hour out of the film and said, "Hey, did the same guy who did Alien vs. Predator direct this?" And I went, "Yes." You could tell. Because it does feel like the same director. You feel a lot of the same between the characters, the visual look, and kind of the way the characters interact with each other. It just feels like the same director. You can just tell. Yeah, movies kind of took a dip in quality for a little while, I think. But it wasn't all movies though. With the I guess when CGI was introduced to blockbusters and they weren't quite ready for it yet, I think that's when there was a little bit of dip in quality. I mean, the dramas were fine. I disagree. I think there was just as many good movies in this period as any other period. Well, maybe not horror. Horror had a pretty rough time in the 90s. But I think there's plenty of great science fiction in this era. It's just there's a lot of notable big stinkers. Yeah, the Matrix was a couple of years later. But Gattaca was this year. That's a good one. Not really CGI heavy though. Well, yeah, not all sci-fi CGI. I mean, it's a sci-fi concept, but it's more of a drama. All right, okay. Defending this point to the death. I mean, like movies. Emmerich was around this time too. Sure, okay, sure. Yeah, there was definitely a couple of big notable directors and stuff who were turning out some shite. Right? There's no denying that. Yeah, I mean, I worked in the movie theater not too long after this, and the movies that came out at that time were, I don't remember a lot of great ones, that were like heavy on the CG. Sure. But I think that's like anything that's riding the trends usually is mostly bad, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's the trendsetters that are the good things. So I think that's true of any time period, and I think it's true here as well. The reason why a lot of these CG movies were made is because Jurassic Park was good, and other movies like it were good. So, not that I'm saying this is inspired by. I'm not saying that because Sam Neill. I'm using that as the example because of CG. I would say Jurassic Park and Terminator 2 are why we got a lot of CG things in the 90s that they were really trying to push it. And obviously it's got a practical use, which is why it kept going further. But obviously, good movies with good CG is a very different beast entirely. You know, it takes time and money to do good CG.
Yeah.
And no doubt it was harder to do good CG in the 90s, just because the technology probably was a bit too, primitive by comparison. But
Yeah, and I didn't get my first job till 2001, but like, that's when I worked in the theater. But
just in time for the first Fast and the Furious movie.
I think it was just after that. My first big blockbuster movie was the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
I was just making a joke because it was the first movie I could think of from 2001. That was bad. Like, I can think of good movies from 2001. That's easy. But
Yeah, and I had a friend that I worked with, and she gave me her copy of, or she loaned it to me to watch of Fast and the Furious, and I just couldn't bring myself to watch it.
oh shit, yeah, don't bother.
I think I gave it back to her like a year later with an apology of, I'm sorry I didn't watch it. I just can't. I hate cars.
Yeah, anyway, so yeah, like what sort of we're talking about all this spooky stuff. I suppose we should talk a bit more about that, and I think because the other thing that goes along with the spooky shit and how it's filmed not being to my taste is the constant people not believing what anyone saw. And usually in supernatural horror movies, it's usually a husband who's at work all day who doesn't believe his wife. Oh, you're just being a woman. You didn't see a ghost. You're too flustered. There's too much stress moving house. Can we just move? Because they always just moved because ghosts. They moved into a haunted house. So scenes where Sam Neill's like saying, "Nah, you're delusional. You didn't see anything." I compare him
after he's had visions of his wife, even.
Yeah. And then, of course, eventually Laurence Fishburne sees the Burning Man from his past, and conveniently Sam Neill doesn't see it. So he still doesn't really believe it's happening. But at this point, they're like, no, what? No, like 4 or 5 of us now have all seen something. So clearly there's something to do with this ship that is making us see these things, whether or not they're really there or not. But we're all experiencing something. So it's like, okay, it's time to get everything fixed and leave.
Yeah, I don't hate the scene with the airlock, with the guy who comes back from
Justin, Baby Bear?
Yeah, Baby Bear. When he goes to the airlock and he's like somewhat possessed, but also just still horrified by the images he saw, and like is purposely trying to blow himself out of the airlock so that he can die.
Yeah, he's kind of like possessed. He goes into the airlock and he sets up the thing, and they're like banging through the window because he's been basically catatonic up until this point, and he's gotten up. The short-haired woman comes in and is like, "Oh, he's gone. Where is he?" And they find him in the airlock, and he's possessed. And then all of a sudden, the possession goes away, and it's like he's actually he's allowed to be himself, to experience and realize he's about to like go into space and die.
Yeah, and the depressurizing is doing things to his body, like even before it opens into space.
Yeah,
which I remember vividly watching it in the theater, going like I hadn't seen like a disturbing image like that before, of like him like grabbing his face and blood's coming out of his eyes and stuff. And
yeah, I'm no expert. I'm fairly certain all of this is nonsense.
Sure, but like
yeah.
If you don't know any better, then it's like ugh.
Yeah. They do say there's one true thing they do say. They say something about don't take a deep breath. You have to like breathe out all your air before you go into a vacuum if you want a chance of surviving.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of a dumb scene that follows where Fishburne just catches him in space instead and brings him back into the airlock.
The entire time when they're talking to him, Fishburne, because he was already outside doing a spacewalk anyway, he's like sort of like coming for him. He's like, I'm coming.
He's swimming. He's swimming through space. He's doing like the swim motion.
Well, yeah. To be fair though, he's sort of pushing his hands off like the ladder around him though. So he's not just like
it's just a funny image of him swimming through space.
As funny as it would be if they were actually trying to sell us that he could do that and move forward, he is pushing himself off the ship. It's not like he's
right.
Yeah. But you're right. The arm movement is very breaststroke. Yes. Yeah. So I mean, it's an okay scene. Like, I mean,
like the realization on his face of like what's about to happen to him is, it's good. It's a decent bit of acting there.
Yeah,
it's a scary, intense scene. Like when you watch it for the first time.
Yeah, a lot of the middle stuff does kind of blur together for me. But like eventually when they're getting ready to leave, the short-haired woman like sees her son in the engine area because she's getting the oxygen like converter tubes out the thing, and the pilot runs off with his load because he's already like got tons of them, and she sees her son, and it results in her like falling to her death into like because there's like a little pool under the core thing. It was like a little walkway, and she like lands onto the walkway into the water. It's quite it's quite nasty looking.
Actually, I like that death a lot. Even like just the fall, like when it first, like she doesn't realize she's stepping onto an area that has no floor, and her reaction there. I think that's a good scene. I hate that she like doesn't question why her kid is there, and she just like follows him blindly around.
Yeah, she's
the
just
ship
entranced. Yeah.
I sort of hate that, but the actual death scene I think is pretty good.
It's funny because obviously I compare it to The Shining because there's a lot of them seeing ghosts that are related to them, or just going up and talking to them and not even considering why they're seeing someone who's dead or anything. But the other thing obviously is there is a scene where a big vat of red liquid gets burst, so it's like the elevator scene from The Shining where it's all the blood.
It is very much just that.
It's exactly that, yeah.
Any kind of fluid on the ship is now red, blood red.
So you got all this stuff playing along. There's kind of a funny thing where the wisecracking guy, Cooper, so he's outside fixing the ship. When Sam Neill does go crazy, and he sees his dead wife, and we sort of see that she committed suicide because he wasn't there for her when he was obsessed with his work, which I feel like that could have used more fleshing out because they barely mention it, and it's just like, oh, okay, because obviously they hint that he's got like feelings for his wife, and he looks at her photo once or twice or whatever, but
Claire.
Yeah, he basically just says though, because he's basically witnessing her go to the bathtub to slit her wrists. He says, "I know I wasn't there, Claire," and that's basically all you get of like why. Is that one line? I know I wasn't there, Claire. Please don't do it. I'm like, oh, that's it. That's you weren't there. Okay.
Yeah, and then he like stands up and looks at her, and she says, "I have such sights to show you,"
which is very Hellraiser, yes. And then she pokes out his eyes with her thumbs, and that sort of sets us into like him being the crazy like one running around the ship. And it is actually, I mentioned that Firefly episode with the Reavers. What's funny is that I do think the mutilated sort of version of him after he's like done and he's like got all the blood, the cuts on him and all that. It is very Reaver-esque actually. I don't necessarily think that was inspired, but in a way by this, but
it reminds me of Pinhead.
Pinhead's fair, yeah. I mean, Pinhead obviously has got the perfect grid. He
does, yeah, but it's like just all the cuts, and along his head, and he's bald at this point. Everything's I guess been burned off by hellfire.
Well, one of the other things they're rushing for, other than of course the fact that the converters aren't good enough for the ship, so they'll run out of oxygen the longer they stay on it, is that they eventually are able to like uncover like this video that was recorded, and it's like the previous crew all went crazy, and the captain's like holding his own eyeballs, and
I like this video actually. I think this is like one of the good parts is that you get all this like really disturbing imagery and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of silly, but at the same time, like it is sick. Like some of the stuff that's there if you actually pause it.
This is the scene that reminds me of Blair Witch 2, because there's a scene in Blair Witch 2 where they eventually play the tapes of what happened the night that they can't remember, and then when they play it back, it's like they're all just naked having an orgy and shit.
Oh yeah. I remember that part. Yeah,
this is what this reminded me of.
Man, that movie sucks.
Oh yeah, it was terrible. But I'm kind of of two minds. Like again, maybe it was the filming style, but it did come off as a bit more goofy than I think it was supposed to. Like maybe it's because they were being so over the top and they were all like just raving mad, and it was all chaos, as opposed to something a bit more ominous where you realize he's holding his own eyeballs, or something like that, where it's like more of a gradual realization. They went for just like and the problem with that is that it's like, I can just sort of take it in and laugh at it a little bit.
I mean, honestly, it looks like a bunch of people turning into Cenobites to me. They're all getting like hooks and like body parts dismembered and all sorts of things.
Yes. It's a little Cenobite-y.
It's not as good as anything in those movies, but or like the first two at least.
But yeah, it just feels more like mutilation, because I don't get because Cenobites have that kind of S&M thing going with their outfits.
Well, we get a little bit of that here. We see a lot of people, chained up or like on the hooks. Even Jason Isaacs has been put on hooks and like upside down.
Well, he's like open. He's like the guy in Silence of the Lambs who's put up with his like stomach all like sort of held open, which
Yeah.
you know, I get what you're saying, but I think all the stuff we see with them with chains and hooks in this is not like Hellraiser to me, because it's more like someone's done this to, it's more like, you know, the killer from Seven or something is got his hands on them and has put them in this situation. Because when you see like those like quick flashes of like the other world that the ship went to, when like Laurence Fishburne sees from Sam Neill, he's like, I'll show you, you know, where they went, and you get all these quick flashes of all this torture. It doesn't look S&M. It looks like, no, this is like torture chamber stuff where they're just in the hell, basically. I mean,
Yeah. That was the dimension.
yeah, that's where they go. They didn't go to another place in our universe. They went to another universe through the wormhole, and it came back. And you know, this should be so good as well. The idea, because they mentioned that basically it's the ship, like the ship came back sentient, and it's actually the ship that's doing this to them. But this felt so undercooked to me. I'm like, if the ship is sentient, like why don't I really feel this? Why don't you give me more of the ship, like seemingly doing things? Like,
Yeah.
why isn't the ship reacting to what they do? I mean, at one point I think one of them says the ship's reacting to us. I'm like, I don't see any evidence of that. Like, it's just generic spooky shit happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It feels really undercooked. But yeah, so that's the basic idea though. What's happening is that it went to another dimension. It came back different. Obviously, while it was there, it did all these things to the crew, like made them all go mad and do all this crazy shit. It's obviously got to Sam Neill, and he's went crazy. I wish that was more of a gradual turn. I wish it felt more like we saw signs of it, and then it was like a oh shit moment when it happened.
Yeah. You assume he kind of makes the turn when he does the I am home and he like takes the bomb away or something off screen.
That was too dramatic for me though. It was too much of a dramatic, like I've already made this choice kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's like where I assume the turn happens, but then we get the scene where he's like in the bathroom and he's having he's hallucinating about his wife, and then she takes his eyes out and stuff like that, and then I think, okay, well, this is where the turn happens, because now he's past the point. He's past the event horizon, past the point of no return.
He's given into the, you know, the ghost of his dead wife here. He's like given in and saying, yes, take me, I will be whatever this is, kind of thing. Maybe the delivery as well, like, and I'm not blaming Sam Neill for this, but maybe his delivery of that line, you know, he's directed to say it in this dramatic way. Maybe if he said it like he was realizing it, it might work better for me.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you know, it's like Laurence Fishburne's challenged him by saying that, and then he goes, I am home. Like, you know, it's, I mean, he'll do better than I can, but like, see, something where it's more of a realization.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, because it doesn't feel like that in this scene. I think that's my big thing.
Or even if he doesn't really say it to Fishburne, but like, yeah, has a moment to himself where he says it.
Yeah, like maybe, well, you know, he sees his dead wife again, and then he says it to himself or something. I don't know, like
Something else.
Yeah, and because I think the idea is that, you know, he feels guilty about abandoning his wife for so long, and that led to her suicide. So now this alien entity of whatever it is preying on him into those feelings to make him think that, no, this is the home he needs to stay in now. So if he leaves the event horizon and leaves the ship, which is his new family, then he will feel the same guilt again. He'll be making the same mistake again. So that's what it's preying on. But I don't think the movie does enough for me to really give a shit about that.
Instead, they just turned him into Jack Torrance in space.
It is very, yeah, it's Jack Torrance, but when you watch The Shining, there's like, like right from the start of the movie,
There's a gradual madness.
Yeah. And especially in the proper cut of The Shining, which is the American cut, so it's the one you've probably seen,
Of course.
you know, there's a scene earlier on where they actually say out loud, like, you know, he has hit the kid before. So there's like a very real abuse that's happened in the past that he's fighting. So when he's being manipulated and he's being influenced by the ghost, like I said this when I reviewed it with Tim, you can take all of The Shining as non-literal. You can take it all as a metaphor, and it is just him going mad, and none of it's really happening. Now, it doesn't quite add up because some other characters see some spooky shit as well, but if you sort of gloss over that, you could otherwise take that movie as all in his head, and it's all just represents him going mad. And that's what makes it work, because it works either way. Here, you know, it's just like obviously there's no two ways about it. It's just spooky shit's happening, and you know, it's all
Everybody
very
sees it. Yeah.
It's over the top. You got a man on fire. You got all sorts of things. I was saying about Cooper. Yeah, he's on the side of the ship Sam Neill blows up their getaway ship, their the Lewis and Clark. That's where the pilot dies. The pilot's looking for the bomb. He's upset because he's just fixed the ship. And then he finds the bomb, and he's like, I found it, and then it's like 5, 4. He's like, shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I said I like the pilot, because he's got that moment where, like, he hasn't really done anything wrong, or, like, he hasn't really been a dick to anybody. And then he kind of has this cruel death of, I mean, not as cruel as what other people go through. I guess it kind of gets off easy, actually. But where he's just, like, has this moment of, like, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, this is definitely more instant than some of the other deaths, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. But just, like, we have, like, 5 seconds to see him just so defeated, like, this is it. This is the moment I realize I'm dying.
But Cooper's on the outside of the ship, like patching it up still when the explosion happens. So he actually gets like thrown out of space. He's still alive, and he's on like a piece of debris.
And he's got jokes.
He's got he's wisecracking jokes even when he's doing when he's like in this serious danger. Because like I'm thinking of like other movies where characters are like in space like this, and it's like gravity or other things like that where it's this very tense thing. And
this is the worst scene in the movie.
And yeah. And in those movies, just like this one, they eventually either use their oxygen supply or something else to propel them back to the other ship for safety, right? And that's what he does. So what he does to like get back is fine, but it's just that he's wisecracking. It's all treated like kind of a silly thing where he's kind of presented like, oh, he's the one who's going to jump in and save the day when he gets back because we've set him up as this like loose thread that can come back when the time's right. At this point, like Laurence Fishburne grabs like whatever weaponry he can find, and he's like, "Okay, I need to take on Sam Neill." And Sam Neill is sitting in the captain's chair of the Event Horizon, missing his eyes. He's monologuing like a madman. He's talking about, I'm going to show you where we're, and where this place went, and blah 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 blah. Blondie comes in and helps him fight a little bit. Eventually, she's
kind of useless, but
she doesn't really do much. Do you know what? That's the thing.
She's blind, and he still just like chokes her right away.
At the start of the movie, it kind of felt like they were setting her up to be the likable one who was nicer to Sam Neill, and I thought maybe there could be an arc there. It also kind of felt like, well, she's not the main character. She's going to be the closest thing we have to a Ripley, in that she's the one, not only because she survives, but because she feels like, it felt like they were set up to be more likable and noble. But then after the first like 25 minutes, she basically is just a background character until the very end when she just happens to be surviving and is there.
She's the final girl just because.
Because yeah, her and wisecrack man. Because Laurence Fishburne, of course, sacrifices himself and blows up the back half of the Event Horizon, and because there's also
gets sucked into Neptune.
Yeah, because even though Sam Neill goes flying out into space, because when they're fighting, the window breaks, and he goes out into space, they think he's dead. And I guess technically he is, but now death doesn't matter to him because he's part of the ship and their weird thing.
And he has eyes again.
Yeah, because Laurence Fishburne sees the Burning Man from his past again, and he says, "You're not him. I know you're not him." And then he turns into Sam Neill with all the cuts, and is like, "Yeah, we're going to go to other upside down land," or whatever it is. And Laurence Fishburne, blows the place up. I think one of the things that bugged me early on as well is just how often Sam Neill kept saying there was no danger, because like, it's after the young guy is like comatose from being in this room, and he's like, "You can calm down, it's perfectly safe." And then Laurence Fishburne's like, "Nah, we're going to shut this place off and not let anyone else in because it's too dangerous." He's like, "It's perfectly safe, there's no danger here, Captain." I'm like, dude, someone is lying in sickbay.
Yeah.
And can't talk. Something sent a shockwave through the ship that damaged our ship. This place could not be more unknowable right now.
Isn't it after they watch like the video too, where he goes, as soon as it's over, he's like, "Yep, we're going home."
Laurence Fishburne, he's like, we're just going home,
That was a funny line.
I mean, honestly, that's the moment where he's probably the most like relatable and likable, is where he just makes a smart decision. No, we're just getting out of here. No, F this.
Yep, we're leaving.
Let's just go. So they can't stay on the ship all the way home, but they can go into the tubes and stay alive in there, because they use less supplies and oxygen and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, which is green in this one and was blue in the other. Maybe it's green because it's been through hell, so it looks dirtier.
Maybe it can just be any color, and it's When the Event Horizon was made, they were all green, but by the time this ship was made, they were all blue.
It's newer and sleeker, so it's blue, clear water.
Maybe. Well, I assume it's not water though. I'm assuming there's something else in there.
No, it's got to be something else.
Yeah. So it's on
Whatever
some
barbershops use.
magic
clean
space
brushes.
juice to keep you safe.
That's right.
Get your magic
Maybe
space
it's flavored.
juice.
Maybe this one's like sour apple or something.
Ah, yeah. And the other one was like bubblegum flavor. Yeah.
Yeah, or blue raspberry.
I love
two things that definitely are not blue.
Yeah, well, the reason why I went to that was because I think because we're talking about the colors and it being flavored, it's making me think of just like generic ice treats that you put in the freezer, and that tends to be the flavors they are.
Yeah,
That's what's making me think of.
sure.
Yeah, we call them icicles. I don't know what you call them.
I actually called them that in Canada. But I don't know what they're called here in the States. I'm not sure.
Ice pop. That's my guess.
Sounds right.
I'm predicting it. They're called an ice pop, but I have no idea.
It's different from a push pop,
Yes.
which is also a popsicle that's frozen. Juice.
Did you call them popsicles in Canada?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're ice lollies here because it's like a lollipop made of ice. And I'm only explaining that because I once said it's called an ice lolly to an American, and they went, "Well, that's stupid." And I'm like, "How's it stupid? It's clearly the ice version of a lollipop. Ice lolly. There's a simple logic to it. It makes sense." You may not like it. I mean, popsicle's a cool word. Popsicle's a great word. I'm not denying the maybe it's even superior, but ice lolly does make sense. Anyway.
Yep.
So yeah, they go in the tubes to survive, and we get a scene. There's like an epilogue scene at the end where the blonde has a nightmare. We do the same, and that's actually something else I hate about supernatural horror movies is the fake out dream. I hate this. And this movie opens with it and then ends with it. It's like something spooky happens. Wake up.
Bookended.
Yeah. And it's like, because she sees Sam Neill as one of the rescue team who are coming aboard the ship, and then she wakes up and Cooper's like, "No, it's okay, it's a rescue team." And then for some reason the door to this room like shuts like on its own for some, just to be spooky, I guess. There's an ending.
I guess so. I guess it's sort of just the dour ending of like there is no happy ending in this.
Yeah, these two are going to be in therapy for the rest of their lives at best.
Yeah, because she's still screaming and stuff when the doors close.
Yeah. So they're going for the spooky kind of like, oh, we're too traumatized by this forever. Like, it'll live with us forever. Which is fine. I guess. I suppose.
It's fine. We don't get a happy ending. That's okay.
I mean, that's fine. Yeah, I don't need a happy ending necessarily. It's frustrating to me because, like I said right at the start of this review, on paper, all the concepts that this is playing with, that the ship went somewhere else, it's now sentient because of whatever hell dimension it went to. I like those ideas, but the problem is that then it plays out with just a lot of random spooky scenes with them seeing a ghost of some kind or someone from their past. And then it falls into a series of tropes that I have been tired of for decades at this point. I don't like it. I've never really liked a lot of these tropes. There's a few examples that have been done well, but I get really sick of them. And I don't think it's directed well. And then you add in unlikable characters, you add in all these things, and I think you have a bit of a concoction for a really kind of just consistently unlikable movie. Just a little bit annoying. Unlikable and a little bit annoying at all times. That's how I feel about this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue. It's not a good movie at all, but like, it's not, I don't think it's completely unwatchable. It definitely feels of its time. And there are elements in it that I think are good, and even some concepts that are good. I mean, I like From Beyond a lot, which has the whole, technology and opening up a hell dimension.
Oh, sure.
I mean, even like the Doom franchise is like that as well.
Yeah, honestly, if I was to pick two movies that were this movie's parents, I would say The Shining and From Beyond had a baby. And I know that doesn't bring in.
There's just so much Hellraiser in it.
And I know that doesn't bring in the space
design
side.
of like the the portal core thing kind of looks like something from
Do
that universe.
I know why I'm not agreeing with this Hellraiser thing? Even I can see why you're saying it. Is because to me, Hellraiser is more about all of its themes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're talking about, there's a little bit of the Cenobites in there, the pain and stuff. But when I think of Hellraiser, yeah, that stuff's there. But the main point of Hellraiser is like the motivation of the character to rebuild their horrible dead boyfriend by luring people to their death so he can like take their life force. Like, I'm thinking of like all the sexual themes in Hellraiser.
Okay, well, yeah, but I guess I'm thinking more of like the concept of the art design of it. Like just
the
version
visuals
of hell is very much what we see from Hellraiser films.
But I guess whether or not you side more with me or Tara on like what is it more like, the key detail here is that clearly it's got a lot of other movies in it. And you feel that, I think, and that would be okay if it was otherwise if it was otherwise engaging with the characters. You'd be like, okay, it's a rip off of a bunch of other things, but there's other movies that I like that aren't original, but I still enjoy the process of them because I enjoy these concepts and I like the characters well enough that I can get into this and so on and so forth. This, and it's like you said, it's a product of its time, and there's so many bad movies that I remember watching on cable from like the late 90s and the early 2000s that had a lot of the same bad qualities all the way up until maybe even the late 2000s, because we talked about Pandorum, when we did that, and I would say Pandorum, there's a lot of... It
has some Event Horizon in it for sure.
Yeah. There's a lot of parallels with that, a lot of shared qualities that I don't like. And it's just a shame. And anyone who likes this, you are wrong. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is.
Maybe you just need to watch it again. That's all.
Yeah, watch it again.
Maybe it's been a while and you have a different memory of it.
And if you say it's a guilty pleasure, if you say it's not very good but I get something out of it, that's fine. I like lots of bad movies. That's cool.
Yeah.
But if you think it's actually good, you're wrong. And I will fight you on
it. Just wait till you guys hear my list.
So... Yeah, I do not recommend Event Horizon. Apparently it did really well in Germany. It was like it bombed everywhere else, but it was a big hit in Germany.
Hey, I took my mom to see it, so I gave it my money, my allowance.
You didn't pay for your mom's ticket, did you, at that age?
No, but I made her go watch it.
Okay, yeah. You negotiated another ticket, so yes, you did your part.
I also I convinced her to go blindly into Jackie Brown, which was a much better experience for her.
Yeah, that's fair.
She loved that movie.
And that was the same year. Definitely, if I'm giving you my 1997 rankings based on just those two movies, Jackie Brown number 1, Event Horizon a distant second.
Yeah, well, Jackie Brown's a freaking fantastic movie that people forget about, even though it's a Tarantino film.
Okay. Well, yeah. I guess it's time to rate the movie. Tara, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking straight 5. Like, I don't think it's an unwatchable film. I think obviously you have a lot of hate for it, but I think there's enough there that it's still entertaining. There's some good deaths in it, some cool concepts. But yeah, overall, it kind of fails at everything it's trying to do. So, but I'll give it a 5 for effort.
If I'm going to watch a sci-fi movie in a setting like this, that's taking a lot of stuff from Alien and Aliens in terms of the ensemble cast, I would much rather watch a Leviathan. I know it's underwater rather than space, but it's the same difference. Like I would much rather watch a goofy movie like Leviathan and get a kick out of that. I'd much rather watch. What's something else set in a space station that I like, or spaceship, whatever. There's plenty of them. I cannot abide by Event Horizon. It's not the worst thing ever, and it's not Anderson's worst movie. I have seen all the Resident Evil movies. I know it's not his worst movie. Like he gets worse than this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say with a straight face that I would rather watch AVP over Event Horizon again. I definitely would rather watch Mortal Kombat over Event Horizon again. So. With that all said, I will give this a 3 out of 10. It's shit.
You've definitely lowered it from the last time you watched it.
I hate. Yeah, it probably lost like a point when I watched it again, and then lost another point when I was forced to watch it again today. Like it got even worse. I was like, God damn it! I hate
You
this
don't
movie.
have many more watches before it just becomes a zero movie.
I don't want to watch it anymore though. I can stay here forever. I don't know. I don't watch it again. Thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Treisman, and Alison M. Fordyce. Those are our Patreon producers at the higher tier on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Tara, why don't you tell them more about that magical place?
That's right, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MountainFuzzTV, where if you donate as little as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of The Ace. So you can see what we think of your favorite B movies. B movies such as the Tremors sequels, the Philadelphia Experiment 2, the Transfer Saga.
For the love of all things, say one that's not a sequel. They've all been sequels.
Gosh, what else did we do? Time Cop. Judge Dredd. The first two we did.
Yeah, why are you still remembering the first two? Look, why not the last two we did?
Because those are like legit good movies. Rotor, that was fun.
We just did Abraxas. Before that, we did
Guardian
The
of the
Brain.
Universe.
We did The Guyver. Yeah, there's some quality B-movie sci-fi trash and
Yeah,
those bonus
there's so many now. There's so many, and there's so many to come. So, $1 per month, I'd buy that for $1. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews one day early, and you get to vote on what we watch once a month. It's really fun. Cool community of people. Come join. Come join our cult.
You can buy that for $1, although obviously the movie that comes from will not be a bonus episode for obvious reasons. But
We're saving it.
But I don't think the sequels will be. I think they're still worth doing the main show, as is the remake, because it's a remake and the wrath must be felt. However, the RoboCop stuff that might go into the bonus section, if we ever want to do it, is there was 4 TV movies they did for like...
Hell yeah.
It was basically, I think it was basically like 4 pilots before the TV show that lasted like a season existed. They did 4 movies. It was called RoboCop: The Prime Directives. Those are bonus episode tier RoboCop.
We'll see what we could do.
Yeah, maybe someday. No, I can promise it then, but maybe someday.
It's far in the future. We gotta save some of the big ones, so.
Oh, sure. I have no problems with that. You can also like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications and all that stuff. And the comment, let us know in the comments what you think of the movie, what you think of our thoughts. Do you agree, disagree? I imagine there may be some disagreements on this one, but we'll see. And of course, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get podcasts from. 5 stars and a review all helps us out. So please do those things. All right, there you go. That is Event Horizon. That's the movie. I'm already forgetting it, thankfully.
Yep.
This is good news.
Wipe it from your memory.
So thank you very much. We'll see you once again. Keep watching science fiction movies. And computer, add salsa.